I was always the oops kid in my family. My parents only planned on having one child, but I showed up unexpectedly. The craziest part? My mom didn't even know she was pregnant with me until she was nearly due, which meant it was way too late to do anything about it. Ever since, they made it clear I was an unplanned addition, and it wasn't just something they'd say, it reflected in how they treated me. I realized early on that my older brother, Vincent, was the star of the show. It was obvious that I wasn't a priority for them. Like, they seemed determined to make things tougher for me right from the start. Take our schooling, for instance. Vincent was sent to an elite private school, while I ended up at the local public one. And it didn't stop there. Vincent got his college tuition fully covered by our parents. Meanwhile, I was left scrambling to win scholarships to pay for mine. It's not something I like to talk about much. For a long time, especially during my first years of high school, I wasn't in a good place. I was the quiet, insecure kid who had no idea what he was capable of. That all started to change during my junior year. Around that time, I met a group of friends who were different, confident, motivated, and unafraid to stand out. They took me in and showed me another way of seeing things, making me realize I could be more like them in the best possible ways. Inspired by this new outlook, I began pushing myself. I threw myself into my studies, but I also made time to enjoy life, and it paid off. I ended up graduating at the top of my class and scored a full scholarship for college. I got accepted into one of the country's top universities for computer science, which felt incredible. But guess what? My parents weren't impressed. They thought a computer science degree was a waste compared to a business one. Going off to college was a huge milestone for me, a moment where I truly started taking charge of my own life and making choices that felt right for me. It was when I stopped caring about what my parents thought or expected. I was on my own journey, chasing a degree in tech, which I genuinely loved. But college wasn't just about hitting the books. It was a time for me to grow, find my voice, and learn to stand on my own. As I got more absorbed in my studies and began mapping out my future, my conversations with my parents slowly fizzled out. It wasn't like I cut them off suddenly, more like we just drifted apart over time as our talks became fewer and more superficial. Meanwhile, Vincent was having a completely different experience. College life overwhelmed him. The sudden freedom and responsibilities were too much for him to handle. He ended up getting tangled up with people who made terrible choices seem thrilling. The constant allure of parties, the desire to fit in, and the easy access to drugs led him down a dark path he never saw coming. It didn't take long before his choices began taking a serious toll on his grades and his life. Things kept spiraling, and soon he was using more drugs, making reckless decisions, and facing the consequences of his actions. The final blow came when he got a girl pregnant, sending his life into a tailspin. Despite his talent and opportunities, his performance in college plummeted until he couldn't even finish his degree. It was a turning point for him, but not in a good way. While I was excelling and building my future, Vincent was struggling with the mess he'd made of his life. And as my star was rising, his was falling rapidly. He had to drop out of college with a GPA that was far from redeemable, but in my parents' eyes, Vincent could not do anything wrong. They viewed him as their ideal son. LED was led astray by external pressures rather than making his own decisions. They absolved him of any guilt, blaming his pals for his current condition. This story enabled them to ignore his repeated failures while remaining unwaveringly supportive. Vincent's rehab experience became a recurring motif, with attempts to rehabilitate followed by relapses. Throughout this difficult period, his pregnant girlfriend, who was shunned by her own family, sought sanctuary with my parents. They embraced her, possibly viewing it as a chance to heal the situation or to project the image of a caring family. Despite the pandemonium that was developing in this moment, it highlighted the enormous contrasts in how my parents perceived and regarded Vincent in me. It showed the divergent routes we were taking while being from the same family. My undergraduate experience, distinguished by freedom and self-improvement, was in stark contrast to Vincent's, which was fraught with difficulties and disappointments. However, in my parents' narrative, Vincent remained the victim of circumstances. While my accomplishments and problems were downplayed or ignored totally, This complicated and emotionally charged dynamic highlighted our family's deep-seated concerns, highlighting the varied roots and viewpoints that shaped our individual lives. After graduation, things began to improve significantly for me. I got a great job immediately away, whereas Vincent ended up flipping burgers at McDonald's. As time passed, my family continued to follow the same old habits. Regardless of what I accomplished, my parents always found excuses to condemn me. Meanwhile, Vincent could do no wrong in their eyes. Despite his continuous blunders, it was as if he were trapped in an endless cycle of unjust comparisons and mistaken priorities. Then one day, something inside me simply clicked. I'd had enough of the imbalance, unjust treatment, and never-ending loop of negativity. So I took a quiet decision for myself. I didn't create a huge deal or engage in a spectacular dispute. I just stopped reaching out to my parents. Perhaps predictably, they made no effort to bridge the divide. It was as if our shared silence had sealed the deal, ushering in a new chapter in my life in which I pushed ahead without looking back. Around this time, I embarked on a new enterprise with a few college pals. I began working on creating my own business. It was an exhilarating, all-consuming challenge that gave me little time to reflect about family difficulties. This endeavor wasn't just a job. It was a desire that drove me. We were making a fantasy into a reality. As I was pouring my heart and soul into this business, life handed me another stunning curveball. I met the woman who would eventually become my wife. We married, and soon after, we had our first kid. My life, which had previously been marred by familial conflicts and unmet expectations, had changed into something absolutely delightful. I had my own family, a wonderful work, and the freedom to design my own life. Looking back, I understood that getting away from my parents' negativity meant more than just putting distance between us. It was about giving myself room to grow, to create a life full of love, prosperity, and pleasure. My road was not without its hardships, but each step and decision brought me to a place I could really call wonderful. Something unexpected happened when the company reached its stride and celebrated a good second year of success. Our success story was included in a television interview, which highlighted us as young entrepreneurs and our experience in the world of startups. This public acknowledgement seemed to serve as a wake-up call for my family. Oh, they have another son. Completely unexpected. My phone started to explode up. Calls, SMS, you name it, for my family, who had previously been largely disconnected. They all cheered and congratulated me on my victory. Then came a message from my mother, which caught me off guard because it seemed like the first time she had shown her love for me in a text, and she even invited me over for dinner. Honestly, my initial thought was to pass. Why get back into that emotional whirlwind, right? But then I found myself discussing this with a business partner, someone who had been through it all with me. He offered something I hadn't considered. I should attend the meal. Not for them, but for myself. Sure, it was an ego boost, but it was also a form of vindication for all of my hard work, challenges, and moments when I felt forgotten or underappreciated by them. His perspective struck me unexpectedly. It helped me understand that I deserved this moment. This wasn't simply about bragging or rubbing accomplishment in others' faces. It was about recognizing my path, the fights I'd fought, and the places I'd gotten to by sheer resolve. His remarks reminded me that it's all right to take a minute to reflect on the value of your achievements, especially in front of those who may have questioned you the most. They quote, re-phoning, messaging, and generally being polite. I couldn't help but assume that they were going to beg for money. To be honest, I started formulating a strategy in my thoughts on how to handle the issue. I was very much determined not to give them any money since, well, they haven't been the kindest people to me. In my mind, I saw this as an opportunity to demonstrate to them that I could succeed without their assistance, do you know? But then I told my wife about the whole scheme, assuming she'd be on board. To my astonishment, she was not pleased with it at all. She became enraged and told me that it was wrong to take advantage of them being in a difficult situation, even if they hadn't been the best family to me. She, quote, normally quite supportive and on my side, so her being unhappy made me rethink my entire strategy. It was as if she thought it was a horrible idea, so maybe I should reconsider. So here I am, sort of stranded and unsure what to do next. I considered asking the people on Reddit because, sometimes it's nice to have some outside perspective. So the real question here is, would I be the terrible person if I went to this family meal to brag about how great I'm doing? I know full well that I have no plans to support them financially. They haven't treated me well at all. But does this justify my plan? So after I posted my big question on Reddit, asking if I'd be acting like a villain by going to my family's dinner only to show off and not genuinely help them out, I received a variety of comments. It was like discovering a treasure box in a game, but instead of riches and diamonds, it was filled with advice that led me in a million different ways. Some people were giving me a virtual high five saying, "Yes, show them what you've accomplished." Others were more on Team B, with the bigger person advising me to consider my wife's sentiments and maybe reconsider my strategy. And yes, there were a few comments that weren't exactly supportive of me or my approach. After going through the cacophony of comments, I threw a massive fit. For example, when you decide to take on a gaming level that is just too difficult, simply because you can. I decided, yes, I am going to that family dinner. Even with all of the diverse voices from Reddit echoing in my brain, some encouraging me on and others criticizing my motivations, I decided I needed to see this through. And here's the twist. After I showed my wife all of the Reddit comments and suggestions, she seemed to shift gears. Instead of arguing one way or another, she simply shrugged and replied, "It's your decision." So there I was, suddenly feeling like the main character in a game, facing a critical decision that may alter everything. And guess what? My wife agreed to accompany me for dinner, maybe motivated by her own curiosity and a desire to support me at this strange, unsure stage of our lives. We didn't simply decide to show up. We went all out in selecting food to bring along as if we were preparing for a nice gathering or a peace offering. I was vibrating with anticipation, not only for the meal but also for informing everyone on Reddit how it all went down. It seemed like I was on the verge of a major adventure or a final boss confrontation. I was both curious and concerned about how everything would play out. So, I'm excited to see what happens during this meal with my family. They're the same people that haven't supported me in a long time. It's like venturing into unknown land, but with munchies and my wife at my side. I can't wait to tell you all the specifics later. The long-awaited family supper arrives. The one I've been fretting over, but also looking forward to in a strange way. So here I am, standing on the doorstep of the house I grew up in. It's a peculiar sensation, like playing an old video game you used to enjoy but haven't touched in years. When I go in, it's as if a movie montage begins playing in my brain. I'm gazing about at all of the house's nooks and crannies, then boom! Memories are pouring back. Some are excellent and make me grin, but others make you grimace or feel heavy within. But it's a mixed bag. I mean, it's not like my entire upbringing was a disaster. There were definitely some highlights in there. Then guess who meets us at the door? My sister-in-law. Yeah, that's correct. My brother ended up marrying her. He became pregnant in college, and they now have 2 children, expanding their family. It's incredible to see how much has changed. And yet, walking into the home, it feels like no time has gone at all. It's a flurry of emotions, and I'm just trying to keep track of everything that's going on in my thoughts. Imagine walking into a room filled with a variety of feelings. Like the first level of a new game, you don't know what to anticipate. Then, out of nowhere, your niece sprints over to you. She gives you her toy. This small emblem represents innocence and kindness. And just like that, whatever barriers you put up begin to dissolve. In an instant, your heart changes from solid ice to warm butter. But then the adults arrive on the scene. Here comes my brother. My parents came next. The atmosphere alters. It's almost like in video games where the soundtrack changes and you know something is going to happen. Their faces are as readable as movie subtitles. It is everything there. Stress and strain. A quiet scream for rescue, and it hits you. These are the same folks who previously questioned you and made you believe you would never accomplish to anything. Yet here they are, seemingly at a halt in their own lives. So we all sat down and tried to be normal, sipping coffee as if it were a panacea to alleviate the uncomfortable. The talk with my folks is all over the place, hopping from topic to topic and laying it on thick with honey. It's an unusual experience. like being in a sitcom where the characters' lives have taken an unexpected turn. You're sitting there, coffee in hand, surrounded by the same walls that have seen your lows and highs. And it is bizarre. These are moments of compassion from my parents. It's really different from what I've become accustomed to over the years. It's like entering another realm in which everything you know is turned on its head. Imagine you're playing a video game and suddenly discover a new chapter you didn't know existed. That, quote, what this family supper felt like. As we sat there speaking over coffee, I could practically feel my parents trying to skip ahead over years of isolation and coldness. It seemed as if they were attempting to make up for lost time with an abundance of generosity. But I couldn't get rid of the impression that their unexpected kindness came at a cost. It seemed as though I was going to become their personal ATM. As we converse, I learn more about where everyone is these days. My brother and sister-in-law are both working minimum wage jobs while my parents are still working. My mother thought it was time to go on to the main event, so the warm-up performance appeared to be ended. She begins by thinking on how life has taken my brother and me in quite different directions. You know, the type of chat that's supposed to pave the way for something larger. Then she goes into an emotional speech about how difficult it has been for them and how it aches her heart to watch her children not having the same degree of accomplishment. It was evident that the talk was heading towards that awkward moment when the underlying objective begins to show through the politeness. My mother brought up the difficulties they were encountering and how it saddened her to see us not on the same level of accomplishment. I couldn't help it. I erupted into laughter. It may have appeared out of place, but it served as a release valve for all of the pressure and expectations that had accumulated. I explained everything clearly to her. Highlighting the absurdity of the situation, I mentioned how she seemed to be okay now that I was doing well, but if the positions were reversed and I were in my brother Vincent's position, I doubt I would receive the same care or support. This confession surprised everyone, especially Sophie, Vincent's wife. I suppose they all expected me to be the same restrained, non-confrontational person I used to be, but things have changed. I have changed. Recognizing the change in me, my father tried a fresh strategy, maybe hoping that a gentler approach might influence me. He switched the subject to the prospect of offering Vincent a job at my firm. According to him, all Vincent needed was a chance, a break, to turn things around. And then he played the family card by mentioning my niece and nephew, which touched me. I won't lie, the mention of my niece and nephew made me pause and reflect, but I had to stay anchored in reality. I told him that all I could do for Vincent was offer him a low-paying position at my firm. It wasn't much, but it was an honest offer that indicated both my eagerness to assist and my dedication to upholding the integrity of my company. This offer was not about charity, it was about providing Vincent a genuine opportunity to start over, even if it was from the bottom up. Explaining to them that the job offer would not be high-ranking, owing to Vincent's lack of qualifications, sounded logical to me. However, as one might expect, it did not sit well with my parents. Their expectations were sky-high, almost by default. Vincent earned a top-tier job even without the necessary hard work or qualifications. It was evident that they still regarded him through rose-colored glasses, believing he deserved the finest of everything on a silver platter. This disparity between reality and their expectations ultimately drove me to my breaking point. I told them off because I was frustrated and fed up with their unreasonable demands and inability to understand the issue as it was. It was a cathartic experience, releasing years of bottled-up emotions and bitterness. As I prepared to go, I decided that I would not leave empty-handed or without making a statement. I had one final chance to implement a strategy that had been simmering in my imagination. My ace in the hole. I dug into my pocket and took out an envelope. This was not just ordinary envelope. It was pristine, beautifully cared for, and represented far more than its outward look indicated. It embodied my journey, my hardships, and, eventually, my perseverance. I placed it on the table with finality, eager to reveal the result of my long-held expectation. This envelope and its contents were my means of proving to my family that my success was earned rather than given. It was a concrete reminder of how far I had gone, both metaphorically and literally, from the person they had disregarded to the person I had become. This act was intended to bring closure and move ahead. They left behind the weight of their uncertainties and expectations. After all of the drama and stress at the family meal, I thought it was time to bring my parents back down to earth and show them that life isn't just about wanting the best without knowing the true hardships of achievement. So, with a little of theatrical flair, I placed an envelope on the table. It was my mic drop moment. I did not give a big speech or anything. I just placed it there, expressed my gratitude, and prepared to go. That envelope was my way of saying, look, I made it despite everything. My parents received the message loud and clear. You could see it in their faces. They understood exactly what the envelope represented. All they could do was gaze at each other, my wife and I. We then left, but not before handing the kids a bag of snacks we'd prepared for them. Give them a huge embrace. Goodbye to attempting to leave things on a positive note, at least for the next generation. But just as we're ready to depart, Sophie, my brother's wife, rushes out. She passes me a piece of paper with her phone number and the simple phrase, "I need help." Boom, just like that. I'm plunged back into the swirl of emotions and decisions. Here I was thinking I'd just make my remark and leave stage left. But now there's a whole other level of complication in the mix. My wife is on the side of reaching out. She believes we should call Sophie and see what type of assistance she needs. And here I am, standing in the aftermath of what seemed like a confrontation, clutching the lifeline Sophie sent my way. I am feeling quite conflicted. So what should I do? Dive back into the fray to see if I can help or maintain my distance. Considering all of the history and suffering, it's like standing at a crossroads, one of those choose-your-own-adventure games. Except this is real life, and the decisions are far more serious. Any suggestions would be much welcomed right now. Hello, everyone. I had forgotten I had posted to this thread for a time, but I'm back today, and I've got a big news for you all. So after some deliberation, I decided to contact Sophie. She told me she felt trapped ever since she became pregnant with my nephew. She'd wanted to go for a long time, but lacked the resources to do so. She indicated a desire to work for my firm, claiming she was prepared to start in any position simply to get out and start again. I couldn't just stand there. I offered her a job and decided to provide some financial assistance for her children. Sophie has shown to be an excellent person, and this choice has just strengthened that belief. In barely 3 months on the job, she has made significant progress. I am very pleased by her passion and work ethic. It's becoming evident that she may be a valuable asset to our organization, especially if she can complete her last semester of college, which she had to give up when she had my nephew assisting Sophie. It has been a great experience, not just in terms of doing good, but also in terms of seeing true potential realized. It's a reminder of how a little help may go a long way towards changing someone's life. I'm excited to see her grow and contribute to our team, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a part of her path. My personal tale has taken an unexpected turn, but I am delighted to be a part of it. Sophie has been making progress not only at work, but also in her personal life. She's been saving some of her wages to hire a divorce lawyer. Watching her take these milestones has been quite inspirational. She is clearly motivated to turn her life around. I'm thinking of giving her a cash boost to help with the lawyer bills, but I'd want to wait a few months. I don't dispute her intentions. I simply want to be sure she's as serious and sincere as she looks to be. She hasn't told Vincent or my parents yet that she's moved employment. Frankly, as long as she contributes monetarily, they don't seem to care about the details. In the meantime, I created a trust fund for my nieces and nephews. They may look forward to some security when they turn 20. Also, after Sophie's divorce is official, I plan to support the expense of her final semester of college. I believe this will substantially alter her trajectory, not only professionally, but also in her general capacity to offer a secure, supportive environment for the children. I suppose this isn't the type of release everyone expected, but from where I stand, it feels like a solid step forward. It's been a bit of a complete circle for me, being able to help someone who is going through something I can connect to. Sophie has demonstrated a high level of ambition and initiative, both of which I like and view as having great potential. My hope is that she will continue on this road, reaching her objectives and providing a better future for my nieces and nephews. They deserve a chance at a better life. free from the shadows of a problematic parent-child relationship. All right, buckle up, for this is a roller coaster sequel after my last article. Things took an unexpected turn for the best. I believe Sophie has been doing an excellent job at work. Seriously? She's like a sponge, taking up all we throw at her. It's been a few months now, and her progress inside the organization is nothing short of remarkable. The kids are doing well too. They have acclimated well, and it is wonderful to see them happy and prospering. But here's the deal. During a casual meal with Sophie and the kids, my brother Vincent arrives unexpectedly. Yeah, talk about drama. He is sober, first time in what seems like forever, and he's not come to provoke a commotion but to speak with Sophie. I was hesitant, to say the least, but I agreed to give him the floor. Vincent begins with an apology, one of those heart-rending moments. I've realized the mistake of my ways, my apologies. He's been clean for a long going to meetings and truly trying to improve himself. He wants to have a good influence in his children's life rather than disrupting them. Sophie is wary, rightly so, but she agrees to begin with supervised visits. Meanwhile, after hearing of Vincent's reversal, my parents are all over him again, complimenting his efforts. To be honest, it's a little excessive, but if it keeps him on track, who am I to complain? Here's when things become interesting for me. My business is doing better than we could have imagined. With Sophie's improved abilities and my team's hard work. We're launching a new initiative that has everyone excited. It's surreal, to be honest. My connection with my parents and Vincent is complex. There's a lot of history here, a lot of pain. But witnessing Vincent making genuine efforts to make apologies, it sparked something in me. I am cautiously optimistic. We started hosting monthly family meals. It's awkward, yes, but it's a beginning. Amid all of this, my wife and I are expecting our second kid. Life is full of surprises. It feels like we are at the start of a new chapter, and I am ready for it. Are you ready to see where this goes? So to everyone who has been following this story, thank you for your encouragement, wisdom, and simply being there. It's been a crazy trip, but I believe the voyage is only getting started. Who knows what the future contains, but I am hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I feel really hopeful.